Now, over the years, myself and Liga have travelled overseas to take on quite a few races, from the beautiful mountains of the French Alps all the way out to the Middle East and the spectacular Wadi Rum desert for Ultra X Jordan. Now, over that time, we've definitely made some mistakes, but we've learnt from those mistakes. So I thought it'd be a great idea to film a video where we give you our top tips for travelling abroad to take on races, because I know it can be quite a daunting prospect and we get asked this all the time at the channel. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Welcome back, folks. Hope all is well. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. Now, if you've seen any of our recent content, then you're probably fully aware that I had a nasty fall out on the coast path the other day. I put my foot into a bog. It was extremely wet and muddy. My other foot gave way. I ended up doing the splits and I've damaged the top of my left hamstring. Now, the good news is that it's not as bad as I first thought, because when I fell over, it was a real shock, a nasty fall and pretty painful. But luckily, I got in to see my brilliant sports physiotherapist, Paul Coker from Move Physiotherapy down here in Cornwall. He assessed the situation as he always does. He's given me some exercises and recovery is going well. So hopefully I'll be back out there running soon, fingers crossed. So my first tip as far as when it comes to racing abroad is actually something that I learned when we took on our first big trail race overseas, and that was Transvolcania in 2014. We had an incredible experience on the island. The race was amazing, definitely one for the bucket list, but we were quite stressed before the start because we had arrived on the glorious island of La Palma without really reading through all the race information on the website, and we had actually forgotten to bring some of the mandatory kit. Now, I hear you all say, what a schoolboy error, but you know, like I said, we were very new to racing overseas and we just didn't do it. So we then spent 2 days before the race going into the big town nearest to where we were staying to try and find all those mandatory items that we needed. Luckily for us, the shop owners were really helpful and they sorted us out with all the kit we needed. So definitely make sure that you thoroughly read all the information on the race website. So I would say check out, the course profile, the location of the checkpoints, the nutrition that's going to be available en route, the start and finish location, and obviously the mandatory kit requirements, because then the days building up to your big race, you can spend them relaxing rather than running around like a headless chicken trying to find a flashing red LED light for the back of your race vest. Tip number 2 is all about insurance, and by this I mean make sure that you're covered for the racing or training you're doing while you're abroad. Now, you might have travel insurance, but that's not necessarily going to cover you for the type of activities you're doing. So hopefully you're never going to need it and all your trips away are going to go really well. But say if you were taking on a challenging mountainous race and you did have a bit of a fall and the race organizer had to call out a helicopter to rescue you, you really do want this covered by your insurance, because the last thing you want is to be left with a very expensive bill. I would definitely recommend taking out specific race insurance that will definitely cover you if you do happen to have an accident. Both Liga and myself have taken out insurance through UTMB. It actually only costs us €49 each for the year, and it covers us for pretty much everything. So not only during the race, but also if we're training overseas before a race. So works out perfect for us for our Chamonix trip. We tend to go out early to get acclimatized to that altitude, but also to get the legs nice and strong in the mountains before the race. So it's great having insurance cover because it just gives you that peace of mind. So we got our insurance through UTMB, but I'd also recommend checking out ITRA's International Runners Insurance. So again, this is going to cover you worldwide and it will take care of any rescue, repatriation or medical expenses that you occur. And I think it is a very similar price to the UTMB policy. Like I said, it's definitely worth spending the money. It's not a lot of money, but it's great to have it in place, and I would always have it whenever I'm racing overseas, just to give yourself peace of mind. So what I've done is I left a link for the UTMB and the ITRA insurance down in the description below, just in case you want to check it out in a bit more detail. Moving on, and it is lists. Now, this seems pretty obvious whenever we're traveling, but when we're traveling to do a race, we're obviously going to be taking a lot more kit and a lot more gear with us. So I think it's really important to write lists out of all the items and literally tick them off as you're packing them into your bag so you know they're there. Luckily for me, Liga is always super organised whenever we're travelling away to a race, and she is a list master. So she writes everything down, ticks it all off, and I'm really grateful for that, because if she didn't do that, I would probably leave half of my kit at home. It's especially important if you're taking on races like multi-day races like we did at Ultra X Jordan, because as you can imagine, we had kit for running and to be around camp for 5 days in the desert. So really is a lot of gear, and again, without those lists, I think we might have left some items behind. Obviously for us, when we go away, we need to bring all our filming equipment so we can make content for you guys at home. So Liga tends to write several lists. One will have all the travel stuff, then another for all our race kit, and then one for our camera kit as well. And touch wood, since our bad experience at Transvolcania in 2014, things have gone pretty well, and I don't think we've actually forgotten anything major since then. So amazing really, isn't it? If you read through all the information thoroughly on the website and then you make a list and you tick everything off as you pack it, that system actually works pretty well. So that is 3 tips down, but again, the next one, really important if you are thinking about going overseas to race. And it's something that we don't really have to deal with when we're racing here in the UK, and it is getting yourself a medical examination carried out. Now, I know it sounds a bit extreme, but a lot of the races in Europe require you to do this, especially in France and Italy. So you'll have to go along to a doctor, get a medical examination carried out just to prove that you're fit enough or healthy enough to take on that specific race. And if you haven't had it done, then you're not going to be taking part. I first came across this when I first took on UTMB in 2015, and I never knew this was a thing. I never had to do it before, so I didn't really know how to go about it. So I rang up my local GP, booked an appointment, explained the situation to him. He did my medical, and then £70 later, he signed the bit of paper that I needed signing to prove that I was fit enough to do that race. Nowadays, you don't have to have a medical for UTMB, but you do still have to have it done for lots of other races in Europe. So again, going back to reading the information on the website thoroughly, always check that. If you do need to get a medical done, then I would recommend booking in with your GP, explaining the situation and trying to get it sorted out. Tip number 5 involves race kit. So, you know, all that important stuff, your shoes, your socks, your shorts, your top, your hydration vest, your mandatory race kit, all that gear that you've been bedding in, testing out in your training, building up to your big race day. Make sure you've packed it in your hand luggage and it's going to be with you on the plane. Don't pack it into a suitcase and put it into the hold of a plane if you're flying out to your race, because the last thing you want is to arrive at your race location, fit and well, all excited, and then find out that your suitcase full of all your important race kit has been left on the runway back at home. By having all that stuff in your hand luggage, you know it's safe, you've got it with you in the overhead locker, and if you do happen to lose your suitcase that was in the hold of the aeroplane, then it doesn't really matter because you've got all the important stuff and it's not going to spoil your race experience. On a side note to this, if you are traveling overseas to a hilly or mountainous race and you want to take some running poles with you, unfortunately these can't be packed in your hand luggage. And obviously I know the reasons why they can't be packed, but it can be frustrating at times. When we flew up to Scotland last year to take on Ultra X Scotland, we were only going for a couple of days, so we just took hand luggage. So that meant, unfortunately, we had to leave our running poles at home, and it was a big shame because those poles would have really helped me out on the second day when I had tired legs. And then, last but not least, not really a tip, but just words of encouragement. So if you have been thinking about traveling overseas to run your bucket list race for years and years, but you haven't done it, I would say just go for it, Don't let the fact that it's going to take a bit more organisation and there might be a little bit more stress along the way put you off. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of incredible races here in the UK, but I just think there's something very different about travelling overseas to run a race, and I think it just feels like a bigger adventure. And it's great visiting new exciting countries, running on new routes that are very different to the routes you run on at home, and then obviously soaking up new cultures and new traditions along the way. And I actually think if you do take that leap of faith, get yourself signed up to a race overseas, as long as you follow these helpful tips, I'm sure you're going to have an incredible life experience. In fact, just talking about our top tips for traveling abroad to take on races has got me all excited about the running adventures we're going to have this year. But it'd be great to hear from you guys. You know, what have you got booked in for 2025? So get in the comments below and tell us all about the exciting races that you're going to be taking on this year. But for now, guys, thanks for watching. It's always appreciated. Don't forget, if you have found this video helpful, to like, comment, share and subscribe. Really is a big help to the channel. And as always, stay safe and keep on running. Like the UTMB policy, that's going to cover you worldwide, and it will take care of rescue. It's going to take care of rescue. He's given me some exercises to do, and recovery is on track. So hopefully I'll be back out there running very just to give you peace of mind. So what I've done is I've left a link for the UTMB and the ITRA.